were victims of immense suffering, immense violence done to us, unprovoked. We did nothing to them. We have never hurt them in any way.
You just talked about how much you hate these Russians.
Yeah, I do.
And I wanted to ask, has it been difficult to, when you see these reactions, downplaying or even like laughing at the deaths of Ukrainians, sometimes even Ukrainian children, has it been difficult for you to continue to see the people on the other ends of those computer screens as human beings, as people, when they're treating you like this, treating your people like this?
Well,
hey, how you doing?
Hey ho, can you see me or hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Fantastic. Oh, there it goes. Now I can see you. Let me bring this up on screen. See you. Is that a lovely Christmas backdrop I see?
Yes, it is. It is my Christmas tree. It's not as good in full-on light. If I turn my lights down, it looks better, but you know, here it is.
How long do you think is appropriate till you have to take your down? Like how long should it be until you're like, okay, this is getting a little sad, I gotta take it down? What's the limit, do you?
I usually keep it until my birthday, which is 19th of January, and then I take it off.
Why specifically the birthday? Do you like the tree? Do you like the decorations?
To keep stuff cute until my birthday, you know?
Christmas is my favorite season. I will find an excuse to keep a tree as long as possible in February, if possible March. I love the Christmas season.
No judgment from me, you know?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. How have you been? How have you been holding up?
Pretty good, actually. Also, I cannot see you. Is that normal?
Yes. I have one camera port, so either stream sees me or you see me. And
I see.
And I'm very sorry. You will have to go through one stream without seeing my hair and my scruffy barbarian-looking beard that makes me look like a scary man in an alleyway. In an alleyway, yes.
Big loss, honestly. I was prepared to see a beautiful face again, but whatever. Gotta stare at myself.
I don't hear. I don't hear that often. But I wanna ask you before anything else. What was Christmas like in Ukraine?
Gotta say, it was the weirdest Christmas ever for many reasons, but mostly because like everyone I talked with, like my friends and family, they all had this kind of strange mood that they wanted to celebrate. They wanted to see some like Christmas lights, to see something like festive, more like usual. Usually Kharkiv is very light up, it's very dolled up. And now it's all like, you know, dark, no lights, no decorations, not anything. And people really wanted to decorate their like homes. But at the same time, celebrating feels weird, especially since we have been bombed on literally New Year's, like 31st, you know, of December. And it feels very strange to celebrate proper when you are still like in the middle of war and you're like being bombed like literally on New Year's. And also hard to celebrate when you know that our guys are fighting still in the trenches, in the very awful conditions, and war does not stop because it's just, you know, holidays. Also, many people lost their loved ones, and, you know, so pretty weird. For example, little stuff like was first New Year's that I have not bought presents for my father, you know? So it comes to mind when I like, you know, go buy stuff, go buy presents for my friends and family. And I'm like, oh, amazing apricot jam. Gotta buy it for my father. Oh, wait, no, I don't. You know, stuff like that. So festive is weird, but, you know, people doing the best they can, I guess.
When I was a kid, Christmas for me was always my opportunity. Because I didn't grow up with her. And she was an addict, and for reasons I couldn't see her all the time. But Christmas was always like the one holiday where I got to see her and I got really hyped up for it. But then when she passed away, I would get hyped up for Christmas. Mom again, only for realize every year, like, wait, no, not Christmas. Is that? Yeah. I don't mean to get into it like right away. I didn't think I would ask this question. Has that been very difficult not having your father here for Christmas? Kind of things have been different. For me, it's a major family holiday.
Kind of, yes. We mostly celebrate like New Year's more than Christmas in Ukraine in general, I think, but mostly in like Eastern Ukraine because religious holidays were like prohibited in Soviet Union times, and people still kind of celebrate it, but still feel like a little bit off. The New Year was like atheist appropriate holiday to celebrate basically. So 31st is something that everyone celebrates. It's like Christmas in Europe, like in America and stuff for us. So it's like the biggest holiday. But people do celebrate Christmas as well, especially in the Western parts where people have not been forcefully made to abandon their religion, and they're still more religious there than in the East. But yeah, it is still a time when people, see their families, their friends, and yeah, it was pretty pretty weird, pretty the least exciting New Year's in my life. I like basically spent it home. First part of it was spent in the corridor because explosions were, all over the place. Most people spent that time without any electricity again because they bombed infrastructure again. And the evening was with electricity, but it was basically me, like my mom and a couple like friends, and that's it. And yeah, I have not spent it with my friends as I usually do because all of them are either on the front lines or out of the country. So yeah, it was pretty lame, pretty boring, but at least my tree is cute.
Your tree is here, and I see it's covered in lights. I would imagine that
it is.
During Christmas time, usually I would assume there'd be lights all over the city. That's probably not the case this year due to outages and probably a significant security risk.
Yeah, you wouldn't be one to light up anything, and people gathering were prohibited basically because why would we want to risk it? And most of the decorations were actually in the underground in metro stations, which is pretty cool. And we had like pretty dope like trees, Christmas trees and Christmas lights in the underground in the metro. And because it's safe there, and almost every major station was decorated very beautifully. And there will have been like performances for children, like theater for children, stuff like that. And yeah. And I see like many kids go to those like performances, and they were like, oh, when we want to go there, when we want to go there, and they're like pestering their like mothers and fathers to take them to the celebration, because I think for children it's kind of like hard to explain to them sometimes what is going on fully, and they still want to have fun and have their gifts and celebrate. So yeah. Underground celebrations was pretty strange, but kind of fun at the same time.
Do you think there's any new traditions from this Christmas that's different from like last year's that might continue even when the war is over? Like, for example, do you think the metro will be as decorated in the future even after the war?
I don't know, maybe like as a remembrance that this was the only place where celebration was allowed, like underground, and maybe people will still decorate it. But I think what separated this celebration, this New Year's the most is like literally every single person, almost like 96% at least of people drank to the exact same thing, had the exact same wish. Most people like wish something like in this year I will, do something, right? So have like a new goal, new something like your dream that you want to accomplish in the new year. But this time, although there was no fireworks and there was like no people gathering the square and like counting until the New Year's is here. But this time everyone was mostly like at home, and they were like still drinking to the, one thing only, which is, I should not say because I don't want you to get you banned from YouTube or whatever, Twitch, whatever you are. But this was wishing death to some certain people. Let's put it like that.
I got you. Must have been a lot of very rowdy cheers this New Year's, I assume.
Oh yeah.
What was your favorite cheers that you heard this year?
Well, certain certain Borax dictator in certain place called Russia was wished many awful things to happen to him this year. It was the wish. I guess people was always drank for the for the peace, of course, for peaceful skies, for victory, and some pretty creative and elaborate ways to wish certain invaders to die.
Burns is an
very, very rowdy as always. Nothing has changed in my absence.
Yes.
Did you see the Kiev light show in the metro where they had to like get on the bike and like ride the bike in order to power up the lights?
Yes, I did see videos of it.
I would assume that'd get very tiring very quickly, but from what I heard, there was like a big line to do it. Like people were excited to actually power the lights.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, apparently our celebrations like in the metro station were like very cute and like theatrical in Kharkiv. So we have like theater troops of youth theater in Kharkiv, like performing like various theatrical like performances. And I actually took journalists from The Economist, the journal, I think, right, to show them stuff like in Kharkiv, the celebrations. They were making an article about how Ukraine celebrates Christmas and New Year's. Basically the same question you asked, they asked, like, how is it different? How will you celebrate? And I took them like to the performance and stuff, and they talked to the director, to like the who created this performance, and he was like, well, this is like this evil ice queen that tries to to freeze our life and to destroy us, but the forces of evil unite and stop her, and he was like, so she's like basically Putin. It was really fun. She was like an ice witch, like from Narnia.
She's like Elsa, but like a total witch though.
Yeah. Like this lady from Narnia, which was like ice witch that was pretty evil. And she was Chronicles of Narnia, I think.
Where they all... Is that the one where they get into like the broom closet and then they meet like goat
exactly.
people? Yeah.
And they have to like fight this witch because she's like literally like freezes the shit, and she takes complete control over like everyone, and she makes life for every being in this like country very like hard. So basically a totalitarian dictator. So this was this witch, but he was like not afraid to say that this is like basically Putin, but a nice witch. Nice for children. It's just ice witch Putin.
There was a lot of coverage in the Western press about the two Christmases. The idea that there's a Christmas in January and then there's a Christmas in December, and that there's some divide there. Could you explain that to people? Because a lot of people were confused by that.
It is confusing. Most people confused about that in Ukraine. So, it's hard to explain. So basically, we have like two Christmases, basically. So the one we celebrate as all people do, and which is like 26 or 4, 26, I think, right? Of December.
We got the 25th of December is the Western Santa ho 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 Christmas, yeah?
Yes, that one. So we do celebrate that since not that long ago.
Santa big in Ukraine as well, like the Western type Santa stories and all of that.
It is an analogy of Santa, so it's like Saint Mikolai, which is basically
Saint
Santa.
Mikolai. Wow.
Yeah. Mikolai is Klaus is the same name. Santa Claus is like Saint Claus. And Nikolai, whatever, it's the European version of this name. So it's like the same shit, basically. So this one is it's big, pretty big, especially in like Western parts. And so basically we celebrate that since, I don't know, maybe like 5 years. I'm not sure, like, not gonna lie, but something around that. But before that, people celebrated 7th of January, which was basically like this thing that happened because in Soviet Union, like I said, Christmas was prohibited. So then when people started to celebrate it, they celebrated it with an older date, which is like traditional old New Year, like Orthodox shit. And basically this date ended up in post-Soviet countries being like different than all other Christians. So it's pretty strange and weird, but at this point we like celebrate basically both. because we are greedy like that.
I heard
We
there
don't
was
want one Christmas.
I heard there's a big age gap when it comes to this, that the older people in Ukraine, maybe the grandmas and the grandpas are more leaning towards celebrating the Christmas of January, while the younger people are more, I guess, more aligned with like the Western version of Christmas. Would that be true?
Sort of, in a way, because most like elderly people celebrated it that way and they don't want to change. They also are a bit dumb, so they think it's Catholic. It's a conversation I had with plenty of people. Yes, it is pretty cool, pretty strange. So most people who are like older think that this date on 25th, it's like Catholic. And they're like, we are not Catholic. And we're like, yes, we are not Catholic, but this is like a Christian, like all Christian celebration. And Catholic are also Christian, So they think like some of those elderly people literally think Catholics are like they're another type of religion. They don't know it's Christian as well. And not Catholics also celebrate on this date, So yeah, so this is like very strange. So for them, it's like for some of them, it's like a Western Catholic invasion, basically, to change the date. But to most younger people, it's like whatever, It's like, oh, we want to ally ourselves with the all over the world Christian traditions, and that's why we want to celebrate at the same time, like the rest of the world celebrates, which makes. But to them, it's like a Western degeneracy, I guess.
What's your favorite Western degenerate Christmas? It's like evil Santa Claus who's coming to give all the kids gay for Christmas.
Yes, exactly.
What's your favorite Christmas tradition?
I guess it's like decorating, for example, with your family is fun. I think family gatherings is fun, and I usually also I do like presents a lot. more like giving it than receiving it. I really like to buy something like very cool and what people want to have, or something maybe like a surprise of some sort for people. So yeah, so for me, like giving gifts and this all like festive mode is what's best about it. I think since I'm like not religious, I don't like attach any religious stuff to it, but to me it's just fun and good way to spend time with people you care about and give them cool gifts.
Ukraine is a very religious country. I got that impression when I was there. Has your non-religiosity ever been a problem for you?
It's very strange that you even got that impression, to be honest, because my impression after talking to Americans, that Americans are way more religious than us. Yeah, in a way, because we don't have this like Bible thumping thing, really. So people like don't talk about religion as much. You don't need your president to show you the Bible and say for God in America, and nothing like that happens in Ukraine. This partially goes back to people being uncomfortable, I guess, talking about religion that much because of the Soviet Union legacy, And some people may be more religious.
Had a big impact today on religiosity?
Yes, for sure. Yes. So some people have like behaved like a reactionary way, So after Soviet Union dissolvement, they became like uber religious, like like in contrast all that prohibition, they were like, fuck yeah, like we're like religious again, dudes.
Like
and
Poland.
They were like, yeah, no, nothing like we're not even close to Polish people in religiosity.
But Poland kind of had that reaction. Like once they were off the religious leash, they were like, time to go ham on Jesus.
But to be quite honest, they were never prohibited as much as Ukraine. So they have not been part of Soviet Union for such a long time. And after World War II, like, yeah, there was like this thing. But this whole atheist crazy vibe that was going on, it was mostly during Red Terror period. So like Lenin time, and that was the most prohibition of religion and most oppression of religion that was done in that period. And at the time, Poland was not part of Soviet Union, lucky them. So, that's why it was not as beaten out of them as much. And that's for one thing. And also they are, I think, were more because they have not been part of this very like anti-religion thing for such a long time. They are not as atheist, if you want to call it. So not not as not as so forced to be less religious as we were. So in Ukraine, it was like literally prohibited to like celebrate religious holidays. Everything was renamed. For example, there was no Saint Nikolai. Instead of him was Ded Moroz, which is like Grandpa Frost or some shit like that. So basically same stuff, but without the religious connotations. So without saint, without the attachment to tradition, to religion.
They whitewash
they
it,
like
basically?
Yeah, so they like annihilated everything like has to do with religion and tradition, and they like slapped another name on it without the religion, because communists have zero creativity and imagination, and that's why they basically, did that. And because of that, many people then in the 90s were like crazy about religion. They were like weirdos, like wacky giant crosses on their like chests, and it was a clusterfuck for sure. But then people kind of like mellow down, and they are mostly young people don't talk about religion almost at all. Whereas like older people would be more religious, but again, not in this Bible thumping way that some Americans are. So people would like write me messages after I appeared on CNN, in Facebook. To be fair, they're like old boomers, right? Older people on Facebook, but still they would write me like, Jesus this, Jesus that. I'm like praying for you, praying, and Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus this, Jesus that. And I was like, holy fuck, so much Jesus. I have not like heard this much Jesus in my entire life. And too much Jesus.
If you get 10 guardian angels, you can redeem them for like a coffee or something at Starbucks.
Yeah. So this type of religiosity is pretty weird.
Did that shock you after like interacting with a lot more Americans? Just like, wow, they really love God.
Yes, I was like, whoa, like so much Jesus. I'm like drowning in Jesus. So basically, I did not expect that much. It's kind of, I don't know how to even explain it. It's like kind of like considered to be bad taste, I guess, in Ukraine to
bad
be so
taste to be super into it, like be super into Jesus.
No, not super into it. You can be into it, like Igor, for example, who you met. He's very religious. He's like truly believes like in God, and he's very superstitious. But you won't hear him talk about it at all.
It's a private
so
matter,
if you ask
basically.
him, yes, exactly. So if you ask him, he will tell you. I asked him a couple times, obviously, but he's not like going to talk with you about it, so it's not like he just slaps Jesus on you like without consent.
So I'm not gonna like if I come back to Hark, I'm not gonna wake up where he's gonna be like holding a cross over me, like trying to exorcise the Western demons. I do want to ask, because this is a big thing in the United States. Have you ever heard about the term the war on Christmas? The idea that there's a war being waged against Christmas. Have you ever heard that before? So in the West, there's this idea that atheists or other lobby groups are trying to whittle down Christmas, take Jesus and God out of Christmas because, he's the reason for the season, and they're going to whittle it down until it's nothing more than a materialistic holiday robbed of all of its religious connotations, distancing people further from God. That if you don't know what that is, it sounds like that dialogue, that very America, it's very big in the United States. That hasn't really extended over to Ukraine at all. There's not a question of like they're destroying the true meaning of Christmas with the materialism. That's not a big debate over there.
No, nobody talks about that. At least I have not heard
nobody. Wow, that's a big issue over here every time Christmas comes around. I remember. Don't have, you've never heard about the Starbucks controversies or any of that?
No, not really.
This is a massive human rights issue. Very important, very important. So Starbucks used to have cups that said like Merry Christmas on them. Now they say Happy Holidays.
Yeah, and
that's bigoted towards the Christians, obviously. This is just like the Soviet Union. No difference, basically.
I see, yeah. So it's like ripping the bells from the churches, basically.
Yes, yeah.
Soviets did. Yeah, I see. And
Communist Hussein Barack Obama has waged multiple offensives against Christmas, and I'm one of the last holdouts. I'm one of the last holdouts in a bunker.
I see. So, as I understand it, that this holiday stuff was to like kind of like make holidays like more inclusive. Like if people like don't celebrate Christmas,
let's say you're
then
Jewish
they, you know,
or you're Buddhist or you're something else.
Hanukkah or something.
Yeah. That's the idea. I would have thought that would have been a bigger thing over there. Like this idea that Christmas is becoming about materialism and not Jesus and God. Is that really a very America-centric thing? Like nobody in the world cares?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody else cares?
Yeah.
Hey.
I have not seen it in Europe anywhere. I have been in several European countries and cities during Christmas times in my life, and I have never seen like even barely a conversation about that.
Wow. Well.
So on most cups you will have like either Zrizdvom, which is like Merry Christmas in the Ukrainian, or you will have like Happy Holidays, basically. It's like completely up to you, you know?
Just got a donation from chat. They said, thank you, Dylan and Anna. Greetings from Bosnia.
Yeah.
You're getting greetings from Bosnia. Look at that. You got some Bosnian comrades in chat wishing you good luck.
Hello. Chat, hello, by the way. I'm rude. I have not said hi to you all, which is
extremely rude. See, that's the Western degeneracy infecting your Christmas spirit. The thing is about American culture war issues is America's very dominant when it comes to like Hollywood and TV and, you know, media. Yeah. I'm pretty sure everybody probably in foreign countries with television at least watch one show from the United States at some point. And so I always was under the impression that American culture war issues will a lot of times export to other countries and then they'll start picking up the same culture war fights. Has that ever happened in Ukraine? Any culture war issues in the United States that's you think ever kind of seeped into Ukrainian culture or Ukrainian society?
I don't think so.
Wow, that's very good. That is a blessed gift.
You know, it's just I think we have so much shit. Like, you know, war and like very bad like wages, a lot of poverty, alcoholism, depression, a lot of stuff that this American problems, how should I put it? It's not the biggest issue.
First world
so
problems,
we have not,
as they say.
Yes, we have not evolved. Oh, that's a nice way to put it. I figured it out. So this is like we have not evolved to your level, guys. We have not like evolved to trans bathrooms. You know, we have not evolved to care about stuff that is not life and death disaster.
You would call that an evolution.
Maybe in a way. I think it's good to care about like more like niche issues. So basically you've dealt with some serious problems like, I don't know, like democracy, like human rights and stuff like that. So more issues now that you have now because you have dealt with bigger problems, right? So now you can concentrate on, I guess, less of a like dire issues, but those issues still can, you know, affect people, obviously. So even little ones. So I think it's not bad. It's just, I guess, the privilege of living in a society that has dealt with, I guess, like major issues and now has smaller issues, which sometimes may seem like a bit of a, you know, stretch. Some people in Europe, especially Eastern Europe, to care about this such like meaningless, apparently to us, stuff. But I guess it's not meaningless if you do care about it there, right? So
these Starbucks coffee cups are a major civil rights issue, and I will not have
that's a little bit of.
But
I know that's too much. But there are other things for sure.
I definitely agree with you to an extent that the fact that we can even focus on such issues gives us the idea that America has a certain amount of stability that other countries don't have, that we have the time to sit down and complain about the coffee cups. But I am sympathetic to the argument that a lot of times these issues are used to distract people from larger issues. Are there anything like that in Ukrainian society where somebody will kind of like, oh, you want to talk about the income inequality? Well, instead, let's talk about this cultural issue or this issue that's not important. So we don't cover that as much in the press. We don't talk about the more important corruption issue or something like that. Politicians do it on the campaign trail a lot. Does that happen a lot in Ukraine?
You know, maybe to some extent, but nothing like particular topic does not jump to mind. It's mostly people in politics. It's just such a huge like problems. You know, we have been talking for 8 years about Russian invasion back in the day, annexation of Crimea. So after Maidan, when I became politically involved after revolution, right, I was 18 when it started, 19 when it ended. So this was the time when I became like actually invested, in like political life. So before that, there might have been something like that. But after that, the issues were mostly like this divide between us and Russia, annexation, a realization of the complete complete wrong understanding of history that we had, like imperialism, understanding of that, I guess. And I discovered things like Holodomor when I was 19, basically. So,
You were
so it
19 when you first heard about it.
Yeah, basically. So I heard about it, but I have not like studied it at school that much. So our education was very like skewed towards like Russia, and almost all figures that I now consider basically Ukrainian, like, heroes, are deemed as, enemies, vile, disgusting traitors to Russian emperor and stuff like that, or to Russian, Tsar, or to Russia as a country. So the entire of this kind of like new understanding that became many people started to discover. Also, we had like problems between the East and the West, very made up problems. This actually might be the problem so that you described. So basically, we would have like pretty severe corruption issues, right, with our like politicians and our institutions. And instead of talking about that, obviously politicians would use Russian and Ukrainian languages to divide, basically to say that there's like this like animosity between West and the East, which was a Russian talking point that our politicians repeated. And they would talk about, some non-existent wall between West and Ukraine and Eastern Ukraine, which we basically took down during Maidan. And people finally started to understand that there is no wall between East and West. It's Ukraine. So we're like all part of same country and same people. And it's even if we speak different languages as well. So yeah, so that was something they used for sure. So instead of talking about like some pretty severe problems in Ukraine in terms of like our level of life, the amount of money people can make, the poverty issue, the corruption issue, the corrupt and very poorly working institutions, and instead of that, they would like bash people to try to divide them in terms of language, in terms of like cultural kind of like war, basically, between like so-called pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian people, which there's war.
They'd pit people against each other.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially like in the East, I think it was a big problem because politicians here were like mostly pro-Russian, right? Yanukovych and his party was basically, Russian controlled. And yeah, so they would use this all the time. So to say that they are preserving Russian language, which nobody, nobody did anything to. And yeah, and I would talk to my friends sometimes and they would be like, well, yeah, but they like kind of like looking out for the interests of like, Russian speakers. And I was like, who is doing anything to you, to your Russian speaking? We're like speaking it right now. Nobody like prohibits us to do that. And they were like, well,
that's something that always baffled me. I was in Eastern Ukraine talking to soldiers and they were speaking Russian, and then I would come back home and then people would tell me that Russian is banned in Ukraine. But then I was talking to Ukrainian soldiers and they were speaking to me in Russian. Like it was always very wild to me. I mean, it's all extrapolation from the language laws, yes?
It is but it's not prohibition. It has never been. And most people, even in Ukraine, after Maidan, like this whole thing mostly dropped. But politicians would still try to use it to divide people, to divide like their electorate, like the people who would vote for them for various reasons, right? And many people afterwards discovered how big of a bullshit that was, especially if you go to the West, for example, like a tourist, like travel there, and you will see that people treat you completely fine, even if you speak Russian. And yeah, so it was very it was a bunch of bullshit that never actually existed. It was a made-up conflict that was actually done in Soviet times and further on in modern day Ukraine as well. So yeah, so people figured it out, thankfully. Currently, it's not even remotely a problem. And in terms of when language loss, it actually pisses me off when people bring it up in that way, because what's wrong with celebrating Ukrainian in Ukraine? What's wrong with our politicians speaking Ukrainian in Ukraine? It is our main language. It is our national language, and it has been since we got independence. So since 90s, right? So what's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong with that. So nobody prohibited speaking Russian. Nobody. I continued to do so and do so still. And yeah, in the East, it was not prohibited. The documentation, official documentation should be in Ukrainian because it is a national language and it has been all this time. And our politicians should speak Ukrainian, which I support wholeheartedly. And there was like those attempts of Ukrainization in the East, of course, because before that, the language was so prohibited, so condemned, so, beaten to the ground in the East by Russians. So yeah, so people would feel, even if it was not prohibited on the as in law, right? But it was still very, people would make fun of you for speaking Ukrainian. They would like point fingers at you 20 years back. And yeah, I'm glad to report that those days are gone. And most people are very proud to speak Ukrainian, and they want language to thrive. They don't want to be Belarus, where the language basically was destroyed. And nobody sees anything weird that the president of the country speaks fucking Russian. Not Belarusian. And yeah, so we are like, we thankfully yet again saved our language from, dying out, even in the East. And many children now speak Ukrainian in the East as well. But some people prefer to speak Ukrainian now. I have plenty of Russian-speaking friends who now speak Ukrainian on principle. Most soldiers try to. I highlight try to because they're like Russian speakers, but they try to, to show their like allegiance, speak Ukrainian as well. And also it makes easier to bust out Russians, if it's a spy or some shit.
No.
And people would like correspond on radios, speaking Ukrainian, soldiers as well. So yeah, people do try to, come back to their roots. There's nothing wrong with that. For example, in Georgia, most people in country Georgia, not the state, most people speak, most young people speak only Georgian now. So my age and younger, they would speak only Georgian. They don't no longer know Russian, whereas elderly people know Russian. And this is the natural process of dropping that fucking imperialist shit and speaking your own language, which is nothing wrong with that.
No matter how bad those soldiers are, they're still much better than whatever I attempt to do. I remember I think I was in Kiev, and I was in a Bolt, for my viewers who don't live in Eastern Europe, it's like Lyft or Uber, but in Eastern Europe. And while I was exiting the car, I said goodbye in Russian because I was practicing both language, going back and forth. And the guy stopped me in English and said, "No, you say it in Ukrainian." Do you think there's any like? There seems to be some hostility towards the Russian language. Where do you think that hostility sometimes like comes from? From this imperialism you're talking about?
What do you think it comes from?
It's an obvious question. Yeah. It's an obvious question. Yeah. Do you think there's any justification in that hostility?
Yes, for sure. Also, there are like three things. First of all, it's because you are a foreigner. So if I meet a foreigner, I would always pass them to speak Ukrainian. It's just something we do because we want foreigners to acknowledge and admit us as Ukrainians. So we will like I can speak Russian like in my day more than Ukrainian. But if I speak to the foreigner, I will try to teach them Ukrainian words, not Russian. And I will try to make them, learn Ukrainian because this is an identity topic. We want other people in other countries to see us as Ukrainians, and language is part of that. It's part of culture, right? So yeah, so sometimes when I would be in other countries and before Maidan, literally nobody knew was Ukraine, So I would say like, they were like, Russia. And I was like, no, 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 I'm from Ukraine. And they were like, Russia? And I was like, you know. So this is like very important to us, especially to people, even to people who speak Russian, they will still correct you and try to teach you as a foreigner Ukrainian words. So this is one thing. That's I probably is the reason why he, asks you to speak Ukrainian, because he doesn't want you to think of us as Russians, and it's very obvious why. And second, yeah, after this full-on invasion, after February 24, I will say that some people became more hostile towards Russian language, for sure. It's not the majority of people. Most people are chill, but some people are very triggered, basically. I know it's like an overused word, but they're like basically triggered when they hear Russian speech, which I can understand, quite honestly. So my friend, for example, she was a Russian speaker her entire life, but she was in Borodyanka, in north of Kiev, and she was raped for days by Russian soldiers. So after she escaped, she completely dropped Russian. She does not say like a word in it. And for her, she heard them speak, and it triggers her now. So yeah, the Russian speech, the way Russians speak is a little bit different than the way Eastern Ukrainians speak, to be honest. I can hear them very easily, like Russian speakers from Russia. But from even that, she doesn't want that. She said, I don't want those vile sounds to come from my mouth. So she is completely like trying to talk Ukrainian. And when I speak with her, I also try to, respect that and don't speak Russian. So I don't think she would curse me or something, but I try to, respect that at least. And so for many people who have not been through what she has been through, but still it is pretty upsetting to hear Russians. Many Ukrainians don't understand how can you speak this language still after what happened, because they associate it with, I guess, align yourself with Russian culture, with like Russian world in a way.
So for her, I just want to ask a clarifying question. So for her, when she hears the Russian language, it triggers those memories of what she experienced?
Yes.
That must be extremely difficult, considering it's a very popular language with hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, but she lives now outside of Ukraine. So she talks with, her friends and her relatives in Ukrainian, and she mostly doesn't want to speak it, She's understanding when other people speak it to her, but she herself doesn't want to associate even with that, with anything Russian, like literally anything, including language. Because no matter what,
like you said, anything. So that's language, film, art, anything, like anything
yes.
Russian. Well, got you.
Film, art. First of all, they don't have films and art.
They have films and art in Russia. They have films.
No. Nobody in their right mind watches Russian movies, even Russians themselves.
What's that old commie film about taking over the ship or something? Something that, you know what I'm talking. They have films.
Fuck it. They are so low quality. Even when I was not not very anti-Russian, I never watched anything Russian. Or Ukrainian, to be quite honest. So our cinematography is so it's, if you have slightly good taste, you would not watch it despite anything political. But when it comes to today I would rather literally murder myself than watch anything Russian. And this comes to everyone, basically. Yeah, for real. No. I translated all of my phone computers to Ukrainian. I don't watch anything Russians. I don't watch movies in Russian, although I speak it. I don't want to see that shit anywhere. It's in English or Ukrainian or subtitles of some sort. Nah, fuck that. So yeah, seeing a flag or something even pisses me off. So if I see I don't know, language settings, right? And they will sometimes show flags, right? Like country flags when you pick language.
Yeah.
And I see that that rag and I get pissed off. So, so yeah, nobody wants to see that shit anymore. So yeah.
Is there anything you like or was a big part of your life that you've given up out of principle of not wanting to associate with Russia at all? Like any movies, television, music, anything?
No,
Nothing. I heard that movie. What was that movie called Brother with that young guy, that crime movie? It was in Moscow.
Fuck it all.
All of it. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Damn. And do you think
I watched it when I was as a child. I watched it, I remember, but which is pretty weird. It's not a movie for children, but I watched it as a child. And yeah, but I was never. Some people did, to be fair. So some people watched like Russian YouTubers, watched maybe listened to Russian artists, like music artists, for sure. Like, but not me. I was never into that.
Do you think
especially Maidan?
Do you think after this war there's going to be a big cultural shift where there's going to be just less and less cultural, like Russian songs, TV, all that in Ukraine?
I hope so, yeah. But not only I hope so, it's just this is going to happen. Like people are they disgusted by everything Russian right now, because why wouldn't they be? So yeah, so I don't think it's returning anytime soon, which is good because most of Russian media is so politicized, so propagandistic, so anti-West, anti-Ukrainian, chauvinistic, fascist shit. So no, and it became way worse, of course, since February.
Did you see the New Year show that they had in Russia where they did all the songs and dancing and with all the Christmas tunes and everything? Do you know they do this like annual performance in Russia? I forget what the name of it's called.
I respect myself enough not to watch that shit.
Okay, then I won't ask you about that. But I do want to ask you one last Christmas-related actually two Christmas-related questions. First one was, you were a Euromaidan protester. We were talking about Euromaidan earlier. Euromaidan went through Christmas. What was Christmas like during Euromaidan?
That was probably the second worst Christmas. This one was the first, obviously, the worst Christmas ever right now. But back in the day, it was, I spent it like freezing my ass off on the street, as usual. So, yeah, so, it was not a celebration. We did sing like songs and like try to cheer each other up. There was like the candles and something like that on the square, but mostly people were like protesting and freezing their asses off. So yeah, it was there
a Euromaidan Christmas tree out in the square?
Yeah,
there was.
Yeah.
Was it pretty?
Yes. It was made out of like posters and flags and Ukrainian kind of like decorations. It was a very like postmodernist type of tree. It was not very like traditional. It was like industrial type of tree.
And that's how I know the West is winning, when the postmodernism is coming in.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard about this proposed thing that the Russians put forward as Christmas was coming up. The idea of a Christmas truce. What was your first reaction when you heard that idea that the Russians wanted a Christmas truce?
This.
Very
but other than this, a lie, of course. So yeah, we didn't react. Most people like shook their shoulders. They like, well, who the fuck cares? Like, they have not respected a single promise they made. Why should we respect that? So they continued to shoot at us, obviously. So they literally threw, I don't know, like 40 plus missiles at us on New Year's, like 31st, trying to make people sit without electricity on the biggest holiday in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. And, they know because it's the biggest holiday in all of those countries. And who cares what they say? So yeah.
Would you say that
actually
was...
actually one thing that I had to, you asked me what I have to like give up, basically, is like Russian cultural stuff. So movies suck balls, music also, but I will never play a new pathologic game. which sucks
Oh,
because I
damn,
loved it a
you're
lot.
right. That is Russian, isn't it? The
Yes.
Pathologic series
Yeah, it
is
is.
based in Russia.
That was fabulous. That
Wow.
was amazing. I gotta give it to them in that case. I do really appreciate the first one. I think it's
Wow.
very like philosophic, a very deep game. But I would not buy it, obviously.
You haven't
And
bought the new
some,
one.
and I will not, obviously. But yeah, but other than that, oh, also books. Some books I had to actually from my library. I have to actually, give away um, to recycle
Give
some
away to
Russian.
recycling.
Yes,
Very
me and my
charitable.
sister we took time to pick up books that not all of it, obviously. There are some Russian stuff that I do like there, and it's not like. But I opened up, I searched it, and most of it had this Soviet Union intro, like 50 pages of Soviet shit, like Lenin, Marxist, Bahuki, and I don't want that in my library. So those went away, and also some books from authors that were literally disgusted by Ukraine. So as a concept, so those had to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, Dostoevsky. That was a bummer.
He's a very, very well-known author. I hear like Jordan Peterson quotes him all the time as his like favorite author of all time. Not a fan.
I do like him.
Why is that?
I do love the book. The book I really loved. I read it a couple of times. Crime and Punishment, I mean. But the guy had to go,
What's wrong with the guy? Is it just because it's Russian, or is there something about the man?
No, because Dostoevsky actually was extremely anti-Ukrainian. He wrote essays about how we are not people, how our language is not a language, it's a stain on Russian. So yeah, so he was deeply disgusted by everything that has to do with Ukraine. Same with Bulgakov, actually. So yeah, that was a bit upsetting, but I don't want those cunts in my library. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
They're not around to object.
Bulgakov actually wrote also an essay, and there's like Bulgakov is actually Ukrainian. He was born in Kiev, and he was taught in Kiev. But many people think he's Russian, but he's actually, surely he is, obviously, because he despised like everything Ukrainian, basically. So yeah, so he has the like famous phrases like talking about Ukrainian as a degenerate language, and Ukrainian identity as made up and degenerate. So he can go fuck himself, basically, is my point. Although Lester and Margarita is a great book, but what can you do?
You were talking about earlier about learning as a kid, and that you didn't learn about the Holodomor until you were 19, which I would assume that's a big point in Ukrainian history. How did you learn about it, and why did it take you so long to learn about it?
So basically, the first person to bring it up at all in modern day Ukraine was Yushchenko.
Could you give a quick disclaimer of what the Holodomor was for somebody listening who might not know what that is?
So basically, Holodomor was a huge government-made famine in Ukraine, which killed more than 4 million Ukrainians. And it lasted 30 to 33, if I'm not mistaken. And so basically, 32, 33, I think was like the worst of it. And so in this period, more than 4 million Ukrainians died horrific deaths. And what happened is the food was taken away and still sold abroad and brought to Moscow, for example. They were not starving. So so the food was taken literally by force by Soviet soldiers, Russian agents, and so on and so forth, and Chekists as well, Chekai, I think you call them. And so they would forcefully take food, and people would basically starve to fucking death. And then when they tried to steal the food that they grew themselves, they would be shot in the fucking head. There's like a law on the book, which is called Закон о 5 колосках in Russian, but in English, I think it's called 5 wheats law, something like that. You can Google it, I think. And this was the law that if you steal like more than 5 wheats, like pieces of wheat, right? Like you will be shot in the head. So yeah, so this is what happened. So the food was taken away. It was continued to sell, to get sold, to take into other regions of Soviet Union. But in Ukraine, people were starving, especially in the east and especially in the areas where the majority of food was grown, obviously. Also, it happened in Kazakhstan and Belarus in a certain extent, obviously, not only Ukraine, but it was a genocide by all means. And yeah, so this is what happened. And I first actually heard of the term our president Yushchenko, 2006, I think, was the person who actually was first not like pro-Russian president, basically. So he was very like interested in Ukraine.
After the Orange Revolution in 2004, that is.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly,
gotcha.
yeah. Which I was too young to participate, but my sister did. And yeah, but I was saving myself for the big thing. Well done. But basically, this what happened is he started to talk about it. He started to talk about the tragedies that was done, that happened to Ukrainian people, how much we suffered in Soviet times, how much we suffered in Russian Empire, under Russia as well. The tragedies like mass deportation, which is Operation West, Operation Vitsula, which were operations of mass deportations. More than 100,000 of Ukrainians were deported to Siberia, for example. And all of that, it's Stalin repressions, Holodomor as well, of course. And he wanted us to do the Remembrance Day of Holodomor to actually, you know, remember the people, and we still do every year now. It's not a celebration, but it's like a Remembrance Day. People talk about it. They like light candles in the remembrance of that day. And basically, he was the first person to bring attention to it, to what happened. And yeah, and in school it was barely taught or not taught at all, and it was never called by any word like genocide. It was not called deliberate actions of Soviet Russia government. It was never blamed on them. It was never not there was no any like accent put on the fact that they were still taking the food. So it was mostly taught as like some kind of like a miscalculation or like a mistake, you know, stuff like that. If anyone mentioned that in like our very pro-Russian, very post-Soviet school education process, it was mentioned like, you know, just unfortunate mistake, kind of like that. If that. Sometimes it was like never mentioned at all. And yeah, same thing with like deportations. I only learned about Operation West way like in 2017 maybe, and you know, stuff like that.
When you were growing up, is there anything you look back upon, like things you believed that you were taught in school that now you'd be like, wow, that was really like that was an anti-Ukrainian narrative that I bought into. Yeah. I was tricked.
A lot. Yes, a lot. What helped me was that I was never taught to be a Russia simp. So my parents never raised me to be like Russian culture orgasming, you know. They never taught me that, and they never were pro-Soviet in any way, shape, or form. So they have not installed like pretty much anything like on me, on my sister. So we like learned stuff on our own. I only came to them to talk about like Russia and Soviet Union and like what the fuck moment with Holodomor and stuff when I actually was pretty old, like 19, like 20, you know? And they were like, oh, let's talk now. Let's talk about this stuff now. My father really liked to, you know, talk with me and my sister about it. But when we were like already adults, not like children. So
was that history important to your father?
Yeah. He despised literally anything about Soviet Union. He thought it was atrocious, horrible, disgusting regime that he didn't think it was. It was. So his country, he was born in Georgia, and my mother as well. So they suffered tremendously. They experienced horrendous shit in Soviet Union, famines, you know, oppressions, discrimination, imprisonment, you name it. So yeah, so he had thoughts, let's put it like that. But at the same time, he did not want to, I think, to, like to cloud our mind, I guess. So when I came to talk about it, that's when he started to talk about it. But in school, there were plenty of things that I just didn't understand. So there was like those moments, like, for example, Mazepa, who is a pretty famous figure in Ukraine. We have him like on our money, stuff like that, Hetman. And he was depicted in my book, history book I learned from in school, as a traitor, as a horrible, fucking, disgusting traitor. And I was like, okay, but who did he betray? Russian emperor. And I was like, well, but Russian emperor was not what? So he was taught to me like he betrayed like Ukrainian people, when the matter of fact was that he tried to liberate Ukraine. He was very caring towards Ukrainian people, and he did everything he could to elevate people, Ukrainian people in Russian Empire. He risked his entire career, his entire life on that. And he was not betrayer to Ukrainians in any way, shape, or form. But because he betrayed Russian Tsar, Russian emperor, he was depicted to us Ukrainians as a traitor, but he wasn't. So stuff like that, For example, Cossack siege, Kazatska siege, right? And Kazaki were depicted not like a completely unique, entirely fascinating entity that we should be proud of, like literally the army, the volunteer army that kicked asses of Ottoman Empire, of Russian Empire, of Polish people, of the biggest empires back in the day with the biggest army, and they still defended our country for decades somehow, and they were feared in like many empires, and they were one of the few actually armies, like volunteer armies, that had democracy. They had elections. They could elect their own like ataman, their own hetman. It was incredibly interesting. It was glorious, in fact. And I was always taught that they were a bunch of looters, bandits, and alcoholics, despite the fact that alcohol was forbidden, prohibited in Zaporizhzhia siege. They did not drink. So it was entirely like smeared with shit. And I was like reading about it, and I was like, why? I don't see that in their actions and anything they do. So, it was confusing at times. So everything Ukrainian was smeared with shit. And yeah, so when I figured out that this was a propaganda machine, I was a bit shocked. But yeah. And I remember actually sometimes I would like my classmates, right? Like children basically in my class would be like, ew, like Ukrainian is so lame, like, or like all the history is so lame because we're like always suffering, always like people trying to, take over Ukraine, this constant battle for independence, it never happens. And they were like, oh, I don't want to associate with that. Like, and I would like look at it and I was like, but that's an amazing story. We literally have like this country like reviving itself as a phoenix every time, despite everything. And people still love it. People still care for it. And I was like, why do you think it's lame? And they would be like, well, I don't want to associate with weakness. And I was like, but what is weak about it? What's weak about being a small entity that fights giant forces that try to destroy it, and no matter what, every time picks itself up and tries to fight back?
The comeback kid. That's what Ukraine is. The comeback
kid. Yeah, exactly. Right. So what's weak about it? It's not weak, it's strong. And they were like, well, I don't know. And I was like, well, think about it. You fucking, So basically it was a battle, and I knew I'm not Ukrainian even ethnically. So I identify like as Ukrainian, obviously. It's my nationality, right? So, but ethnically I'm not. And I was like, and I have like these kids with Ukrainian surnames, with Ukrainian names, like aggressively Ukrainian surnames, not Russian. And they would like, ew, Ukraine. And he was like, what the fuck, dude? And yeah, I'm very happy that this changed, that people actually learn to see themselves like as not lame and shameful, but actually to think, whoa, we're fucking fighters, dude. We like stood out against incredible odds, and we're pretty based actually, pretty cool. So I'm very happy about that. I always felt like we were belittling ourselves. I didn't even blame Russians as much. I didn't understand the connection at the time. But
would you say that like
yeah.
self-hatred is a big issue in Ukraine?
Can you say it again?
Would
like,
you say
no.
that like self-hatred is a big issue in Ukraine? Like hatred of your own culture?
It's lagging. I don't hear you.
It's lagging? Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Would you say that self-hatred, hatred of one's like own culture or history is a big issue in Ukraine? And does the region you live in change that? Like if you grew up in
Yes.
say Lviv, do you think your education would have been different and you would have been taught more
Yes.
stuff about Ukrainian? Yes, okay.
All of that, yes. Basically, a giant yes. So now I would like to point out again, since my dying time, these things changed dramatically. And now I have not seen people so united in my entire life. And makes me very happy. It's sad that this have to, be achieved because of the horror of this war brought to people, to them, for finally open their eyes and see, things is there. But other than that, of course, in the East, people were Russified. People were part of Russian Empire for way, way longer time than Western parts were. Western parts literally became part of like Russian sphere in Soviet Union after World War II and stuff like that. So yeah, so the influence was completely much stronger in the East. Ukrainian was prohibited. It was prohibited in Ukraine, even Russian Empire. Ukrainian culture, music, songs, identity, everything was prosecuted. So of course it affected people in the way they, think about themselves. Some people were very rebellious. They fought, they resisted. Some were desperate just to live a life, just okay, we abandon everything about ourselves, but just leave us alone. And they became Russians, basically. So they assimilated with that culture, and which imperialists tend to try and do, And yeah, so this revival of Ukrainian identity happened every now and then, every, 50 decades, it's 5 decades, it happens, 50 years, basically, we get annihilated to smithereens, and then people okay, fine, we will do whatever you want, just leave us alone. And then they will be no, you know what, we actually are Ukrainian, we want our language, we want our songs, we want our culture, we want our traditions, and the fight continues. And then they annihilate us again, and then 50 years is silence, and then again they revive themselves. So this is something that I relate to quite a bit when I read to older writers, Ukrainian writers from even 19th century, 18th century, 20th century especially. You would read the same ideas, the same problems, the same struggle, the same dream that people had then that they have now. So yeah, pretty relatable despite them living centuries ago. Yeah.
One last question about culture and history. When I was in Ukraine, people were very proud, very obviously, to be Ukrainian. A lot of people would tell me about their pride in being Ukrainian.
Finally.
Finally for you, that must be a major relief. Where does that pride, do you think, resides in? If someone was to ask you, why are you proud to be Ukrainian? Where is that pride coming from? What would you say to them?
I think mostly, I won't speak for everyone, obviously, but to me, the most thing I'm proud of is our, I guess, strength and resilience and bravery in terms of defining odds that are very much against us, and in terms how much we love and care for this very weird place, very weird country in many ways. So I might be in one breath saying, oh, I fucking hate this country, it's so fucking lame in some respects, and at the same time I still love it. So yeah, I think that's the that's a great attitude, actually, because if you like, I don't want to be like, like Russia that like that eats its own shit and thinks it's good. I don't want to like think we're like flawless or amazing in every way. No, I want us to see our flaws, our things that we're doing bad, and to improve and to become better. I want us to be critical of ourselves, and this, I think, is a very, I guess, unique way in which Ukrainian like kind of nationalism kind of manifests, that people are not like blinded by this like love for their country. They see the flaws, they see the problems, they criticize it all the time, like on on social media, in real life, in politicians, everything, and they still love it, and they still think it's worth something, worth a lot, actually, worth our lives. So yeah, I think people are dreamers here. They really hope to have something that generations before them fought for. So they want freedom, they want independent Ukraine, they want democracy, they want freedom of speech, they want human rights, they want less corruption, they want working institutions, they want to be everything that fascist or totalitarian or, frankly, Russia isn't. So this is something I think is worth respect, how much people are willing to lay out for that dream.
When, I want to wrap up because I know you want to go to bed, and I want to make sure you have the ability to get some Z's.
It's fine. I have zero chances to fall asleep, honestly, because I know Russians are going to activate in a couple hours and wake me up anyway.
How
So,
constant is that
fine.
right now? How constant are the power outages and the bombing? And you're still in Kharkiv right now, yeah?
Yeah.
How constant is the bombing and the power outages right now? Because I was told, well, from a friend who's around Kiev right now, that it's slowly getting better. Is that different in Kharkiv?
It's kind of worse in Kiev, so I would say that we're having it a bit better for sure than Kiev does. And
Really?
yeah. So if you want to come along, Mr. Burns, Kharkiv is a better place because it's way better here in terms of like work and internet access and stuff like that. So basically, it's almost okay. It's only worse, awful when they do straight up attacks on infrastructure that like they did a couple days ago, right? So they like attacked infrastructure and it was bombed again, and we had no electricity, no heat, no water, no anything, cell phone connection whole entire day, and basically something like 24, 26 hours. But this only happens like on the days of attacks, basically. And they do them like once in 2 weeks, couple times in 2 weeks. But they're like your general, in the general time, it's way better. So when there are no attacks, we have like way better in terms of electricity than Kiev does. In there was like, when I was there still, it was like 12, 14 hours without light, or 16 hours without light every day. So yeah.
So
sometimes it gets a bit better, and then they attack again, So yeah.
I know at first the reactions you probably had to the bombing have changed, at first what you did when you heard bombing and the way you reacted emotionally and the way you acted physically and try to prepare yourself, keep yourself and others safe, it's probably different 9 months, 11 months, for almost a year on. How have you changed in how you react to the bombing? Because I've definitely changed when after 2-3 months in, I started having a much more laissez-faire reaction, if to put it gently. How have you changed?
Well, to be fair, you were in Kiev. It was not anywhere near because it was in Kharkiv. So you have like every reason to be, more, I guess, not as reactive to it. And actually, as soon as you left, Dylan, Kiev got bombed several times. So it's we need you back apparently. But yeah,
I'm a walking good luck charm, is it?
Yeah, a talisman. Yeah, but whatever it is, it's just it got worse when you left in terms of like explosions and shit. Several people were like killed in the city center in various areas. Actually, the house where I was living got bombed quite close to where I was staying in Kyiv. So, it's like that. It depends on the location. Now in Kharkiv, even when you were here, it was way better than it was in, let's say, March or April or like June, July, August. So before the counteroffensives of, counteroffensives that pretty much liberated Kharkivska Oblast as a general, like Kharkiv region. And before that, we got like artillery smacks like 7 times per day. So of course it was different, and I was more cautious. But now, since they no longer attack us as much, I am much more like, whatever, something like that. So if I hear like a siren and I hear no booms, I will not react basically in any way. I will like go on about my day. But if I start hearing booms, explosions, and stuff like that, then I might go to the corridor or some shit, But yeah, I'm not as reactive to sirens as I was. But depends, of course. If you are in a city that is constantly under attack, as Kharkiv was for months, then you probably should be still more cautious. Yeah.
100%.
I guess.
One last question. I do want to wrap this up to give you some good time to attempt to get sleep. It has almost been a year since the February 24th invasion, and a month. Yeah. It will be a year later. Is there any reflections that you've been having now that we're so far into this? It's almost been a year. Anything you've been thinking about? Anything you would like to say almost a year on?
Well, to be quite honest, it's like still February, that day 24th for me, honestly. So time's kind of like not moving as it used to, I guess. So there's like, yes, there's life before February to 24, and there's life after it. And I think that it will not change until it stops, until we have like peaceful skies again, and we can try and have time to actually process what has happened to our nation and to all of us. Because currently it's all this like, war is going on. I like doing volunteer work way more now, thanks to you and to Destiny mostly. I like go to the front now. I deliver stuff myself. I do this. I'm like involved in like, volunteer work, direct work. And for me, it's the same. So yeah, it's a year, yeah, but it doesn't change anything. Like, it's just, some people say like, that new year will only begin in Ukraine when war ends. So yeah, so I guess it's just the year. It will be a year, and then it will be more than a year, I guess. And of course, so there's some feeling of getting a bit tired, I guess, in a way sometimes. So you think like, holy fuck, it's a year almost, right? But then you think about, stop moping about and complaining, and remember the guys you visited a couple days ago on the front lines. So compared to them, I have zero rights to, to mop about. So when I think about it, it actually makes life way easier for me that I go to the front in a way, because I see them and I understand the value of what I'm doing, and I understand that war is just the same. And yeah, so my city is not as much as shelled as much, but some other cities are still, right? And things that happened the other day in Dnipro, like that reminds you that you have to continue the fight, because the entire building pretty much was destroyed, and 40 people are killed, and dozens upon dozens severely injured, and 72 apartments were ruined. More than 1,000 people lost their homes, and in just one moment of a senseless, fucking brutal violence against Ukraine.
For those of you in the chat who don't know, there was a Russian strike on an apartment complex in Dnipro that killed a lot of civilians, including, I think the youngest was a 15-year-old girl. It killed a boxing coach, killed a lot of people. It was extremely horrific. Have you seen the Russian social media reaction to what happened there? Could you give me the tenor of the reaction and what how that made you feel?
Posted about it on Twitter even. It's nothing new. They react like that every time. It's just it was this big
How did they
event
react
because,
though? How was the reaction?
well, can I swear?
You're
No,
perfectly
probably
allowed.
not.
You're perfectly allowed. Yeah.
But this word you would not like, Dylan. It's an F word.
Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So they basically called us said like Ukrainians are the F word. All of us, I guess. Well, I'm okay with that one. gay Ukraine. So basically, all of us are the F word and should die. That it's a good thing that chachli, which is a derogatory word about Ukrainians, needs to suffer. Also, that they should do a nuclear strike to follow up this strike at the building because to cover their traces. Smart of them, huh? So stuff like that, joyful, full of joy, gloating about Ukrainians suffering and dying. What's new? So reading the comments like that, you just understand one thing and one thing only: they're fascists. They don't care. They hate us. For them, it's either we are part of them, part of Russia, part of Russian world, or we shouldn't exist. That's it. So for them, we are subhuman. We're not people. They don't see us as people. There were comments like, Ukrainian fried meat, yummy. What on actual earth? So honestly, if I saw like a building in Russia right now destroyed to smithereens with people like crushed to death, despite all my pure hatred towards Russians and Russia, I would still not write comments like that.
I'm sorry,
It's
I keep
just
saying last question, but I swear to God, this is the last one. I swear. You just talked about how much you hate these Russians.
Yeah, I do.
And I wanted to ask, has it been difficult to, when you see these reactions downplaying or even like laughing at the deaths of Ukrainians,
Often,
sometimes
yeah.
even Ukrainian children, has it been difficult for you to continue to see the people on the other ends of those computer screens as human beings, as people, when they're treating you like this, treating your people like this?
Well, it's a complicated question in a way because I have like a little bit of a different opinion than I guess most people in that, because people tend to be like they're so hurt, like they're in so much pain. Many people feel it as a tremendous betrayal as well. So they feel like this. We are victims of immense suffering, immense violence done to us, unprovoked. We did nothing to them. We have never hurt them in any way. So for many people, this rage, it kind of manifests in a way that they dehumanize other people as well. But to me, it's a little bit of a cope, honestly, because some people, they how to say it in English, they like try to explain this vicious hate, this vile way of how they speak of us, how they treat us. They try to explain it, vile acts of human beings, of them not being humans. Some people say like, oh, Nazis are not humans, or like fascists are not humans, right? And some people here say like fascists are not humans, right? Because no humans would do such a thing. And to me, it's a little bit of a cope. People try to explain such horrible acts that human beings are capable of, like Nazis, like Russians today as well. And they are thinking, well, humans don't act like that, right? So if the people act like that, if they are like that, then they're not humans. And I think the important thing to understand is, for everyone actually, not only for us, is that there are humans actually, and that humans are capable of such horrendous shit. And this was humans who did such things, as Nazis did, and as Soviet Cheka did, as Russia did, and us. So to me, there are humans. They're just vile, horrible humans, but they are humans still. So so I prefer not to do this dehumanizing shit, because I think it's a way to to explain horrible behavior and distance them from human, like, race, from humankind, because we think, oh, no, humans are not like that. But the truth is, humans are like that. They can be good as well, of course. They can do very good things, but they can also do horrible things. And even good people can, So, so I think it's important to keep in mind that this is what they are now. Not all of them, but, those people who write comments like that, right? Who feel like that, who feel this like intense hatred in their hearts right now. They are who excuse this, what is going on, this imperialist attitudes, chauvinistic attitudes, anti-Ukrainian attitudes, anti-Western attitudes, homophobia, whatever it is, like severe homophobia, like they should die kind of homophobia, But this is something that can happen to anyone, honestly. So I think it's important to think about it.
That was
that way.
That was a fucking fantastic answer. That was a really good answer to that question.
Thanks.
I didn't expect it was going to be that good. I appreciate it. Not because I don't think you're brilliant. You're brilliant, of course. You're brilliant, of course.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a while since I've talked to you. I missed you, quite frankly. And
thank you. I missed you there.
And hopefully I'll be able to see you when I come back to Ukraine in a month. I appreciate you taking the time, man. Thank you. You have a good one, and get some sleep, okay? You deserve it more than anyone else.
We love our DylanBurnsLIVE, you know that. We drink to your health and stuff with people. Also, I have so many interesting people I could get you to meet. It's me trying to entice you to come to Ukraine.
You are enticing me with interesting interviews. Interesting footage will always entice me to come to Ukraine. Oh my goodness, I
do always talk about you with people still, and I think you deserve it, honestly, because for one, it was like a pleasure genuinely to meet you and to see how much you genuinely care. And I want to throttle people that call you a war tourist with my hands. So, I really appreciate you. I think you are a very good friend to Ukraine and to truth and to journalism as well. And the work you do is great, I think. But other than that, I also really kind of don't meet as much people, I guess, like foreign people who understand the situation as much as you do, obviously, because you have been here and, you still saw stuff with your eyes. You talked with people yourself. You heard what they have to say. And I think you're really rare that a foreigner, especially an American, respects Ukrainian people so much in terms of what we want, what we care about, what we want, what we fight for. And so to me, it's always basically a blessing to find a foreigner like that who really respects us enough to actually hear us out, I guess.
You're making me blush. You're not allowed to do that on stream. And the highest honor anyone could ever bestow me is saying that they would strangle somebody to death on my behalf. So I do appreciate that.
Cute.
Thank you very much.
It pisses me off, honestly. When I hear it, I always correct people because it pisses me off, really. I really don't think it suits you, the term. Anyhow, I would like to, talk again at some point, chat. Everyone, bye-bye. And be safe. Take care.
Have a safe week, okay? Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.